Tell him you remember.
You must remember.
Anyway.
And I am the voice of the voiceless.
That is undisputed.
Hey, this is a Toxic Reign scandal featuring TBK, the Turnbuckle King. Got another good one for you guys today. We'll talk about why they were always allies, how did Brock Lesnar really meet Sable. We'll talk about Brock Lesnar, his marriage to Sable, how it all started. Also, its interconnection with Sable and Vince McMahon. Talk about the lawsuit that Sable had back with WWE, and Sable later returning to WWE. And basically, what do Vince McMahon and Brock Lesnar have in common? And also, we'll talk about the connection with the Janel Grant lawsuit. So we're going to get into it, but you guys tune in because we are here at the TNT Toxic News Turmoil. With that being said, let's get into it and let's air the dirty laundry. Now, there was an interview stated by Scorpio, the legendary ECW wrestler. He was at a Comic-Con and he said that, quoted by him in his words, Vince McMahon said on having relations with Sable, saying that he's going to have relations with her. Don't know when, but that's what he revealed. And he said that Vince McMahon basically publicly stated that he was going to have relations with Sable. Why would Vince McMahon say that? That's the question. Now, it's all connected because we know later on Sable ended up suing WWE, and this was back in 1999. And it said that June 1999, Sable quit WWF at the time and filed a $110 million lawsuit against the company. It said there is allegations of harassment and unsafe work conditions. And it said in the documents they were unearthed around the time when Donald Trump hired Vince McMahon to be part of administration, as well as other charges were filed under McMahon's WWE. Has faced numerous complaints of abuse. Now, this is back in 1999. Now, we know that Sable left. She tried to start a Hollywood career. Even though it was successful, she did return for a short stint in 2003. Now, it's reported that when Sable did return, it said that she was forced to apologize to the top names at the time, which would be Stone Cold and Undertaker. It said she returned to WWE after a failed Hollywood career. And Vince McMahon said that Sable had to apologize before being allowed back. Now, of course, she started in WWE at first. That's how she got her name out, did Playboy and everything, but it ended in 99. So that's crazy about it, that Sable, she would return. And I always found it weird that she returned because that was a many eyebrows that flared up when she returned. It was surprising, at least surprising to me. But she did sue, but she came back. So, and if you notice, guys, when she did sue, she did somehow get involved with Vince McMahon. That's the crazy part about it. It's crazy because they had a romantic storyline. They was kissing on screen, everything. Now we know a storyline, but due to what Scorpio said, I think there was more involved than just storyline between him and Sable romantically. They were involved, and this was before Brock Lesnar got involved with Sable and married her. There was definitely something going on between Sable and Brock Lesnar. So that's the crazy part about it. But definitely, I believe it was something with Sable and Vince McMahon. Now, she got with Brock Lesnar later, and they later married. Now, we do know, too, Brock Lesnar at the time was engaged to his twin's mother, And Sable was married to fellow wrestler Marc Mero, as we know, was known as Johnny B. Bad in WCW, and former Intercontinental Champion. So my thing is, Vince McMahon was involved with Sable after, especially what Tuco Scorpio said in the interview, and then Brock Lesnar is involved with Sable. My thing is, between Brock and Vince is some type of connection there. Now we know that, this was back in late '99 when Sable sued, in early 2000s when she got with Brock. But my point is, despite this, there was still something going on between Sable, Brock Lesnar, Vince. There's always connection there. And also we could tie in as well that things still happen to this day. Look at what happened with Janel Grant. Vince McMahon gets caught in the trafficking, and then Brock Lesnar's name is in report. They're involved with the same woman. Now, what I mean by this is, it seemed like Vince McMahon, he has his fun, his pleasure of what he does. And it seemed like, did Brock Lesnar gets involved after? Did he take Vince leftovers? Think about it. Vince McMahon was less involved with Janel Grant. Then Brock Lesnar asked for pictures of her, and he was originally going to meet with her, but due to a snowstorm, it did not happen. Even though he didn't do nothing with her, there's text messages, asked for pictures and photos. Now this is Janel Grant, and look how much this is blown up. Now Vince McMahon is currently under federal investigation, and Brock Lesnar's name has been pretty much erased from WWE. They've erased it from the WWE 2K24 video game. That's the crazy part about it. Now this is 2024, all this stuff happening, but it's always some type of connection between Brock and Vince. And I believe the connection with these two originally started with Sable, and that's who Brock Lesnar is married to now. So they were always allies, Brock Lesnar and Vince. Vince is married to Sable. Vince is involved with Sable, and Sable's married to Brock Lesnar. Now they've been married. Brock Lesnar and Sable been married since 2006. I know they have 2 children together, 2 boys. I know Sable has a daughter from previous marriage, and Brock Lesnar had 2 kids. So it's just crazy how all these things are connection with each other. Like I said, this is not no type of storyline that Sable was involved with Vince. I believe with this storyline with Sable and Vince romantically, this is how she became involved with Vince, I believe, more than just on screen. Also, this is how she met Brock Lesnar. I say this all the time, that even though this storyline is acting, let's be honest here. WWE, other wrestling companies, AEW, TNA, you name it, they're not A-list actors. So you have to understand that the acting that they're doing in the storyline and the character and promos, majority of them, it's a part of the realness in that character in the acting. It's not just all acting. These are not Juilliard trained actors. These are not people that was on Broadway. These are professional wrestlers that's involved in a storyline that is displayed on weekly television and also later PLEs and pay-per-views. So I believe that Brock Lesnar got with Sable and met Sable through the whole Vince McMahon storyline with Sable, and Sable was involved with Vince, and he passed her along to Brock, just like Janel Grant was going to be passed along to Brock Lesnar through Vince. It's some things that we could say storyline, but some things it's just not acting. I don't believe so.
Tell him you remember.
You must remember.
So yes, that's not acting. That's realness in there, and Brock Lesnar and Sable, like I said, whether people want to believe it or not, I believe Brock Lesnar basically took over Vince's leftovers. Sable was a leftover for Vince McMahon, And Sable was passed along to Brock Lesnar. It's just he ended up falling in love. They got married, and they're still married currently. But this is definitely not a coincidence with Brock Lesnar, Sable, and Vince. Then later on, the whole Janel Grant lawsuit. I don't think it's a coincidence at all. It's like we see a pattern here with this. It's a pattern with Vince, Brock, and also a woman involved. And I believe it started with Sable, and many years later, Janel Grant. And also believe there were other women involved too before Janel Grant. It's not out there publicly yet, at least for all I know. And I believe with this connection with Vince and Brock Lesnar, is this why Brock Lesnar always had huge contracts and leverage? Because Brock Lesnar had massive contracts. I believe he was reportedly making $5 million a year, barely showing up to WWE, and even the world champion, mostly the WWE champion or the Universal champion, and a lot of people was getting on Vince McMahon and gave Brock Lesnar flack for that, like, hey, he's a part-time champion, he's never here, and he has a huge contract well before Roman Reigns ever did it currently as the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. But definitely it's connection between Brock Lesnar and Vince and Sable and later Janel Grant. He had huge contracts for years. Think about it too, when the first lawsuit broke with Vince McMahon for the hush money scandal, they said Brock Lesnar was livid. They said he was throwing stuff allegedly backstage. They said he wanted to quit, he wanted to leave, because Brock knew that when the scandal happened that it was over as far as Brock having leverage. We have to remember that too. It affected Brock. And that's why things was never ever the same, if you realize that. Not just money-wise, but also the leverage. So he believed he was affected. The only thing difference is when Brock Lesnar first heard of the Hush scandal, he never thought the stuff with Janel Grant would come to light with the media, and definitely erased his name from WWE to the point where his merchandise is discounted, and later on erasing his name from the WWE video game and also the cover, etc., etc. So he didn't think it would go that far, but he knew Vince's days of being on top, his days of having leverage, doing whatever he wanted to do, come and go as he pleased. Brock Lesnar knew that it was over. He knew it was over. That's the sad part about it. But it's not a coincidence of what all this stuff going on. And then also connection once again between Brock Lesnar and Vince. I'll also say this as well, that Brock even considered him a father figure at one point. He considered him a father figure. I mean, he has been quoted to say that. He said in this quote here that he looks to Vince McMahon as a father figure. How can a guy that's done all the stuff that he's done with the allegations, with the hush money scandal, the alleged abuse, everything, you look this guy as a father figure? There is a connection between Vince and Brock. It always has been, and I believe it still is. It's just Brock, of course, is laying low right now of what's going on. He's saying to himself, because he's definitely not going to be involved with WWE. Not only, like I said before, he was pulled from the video game, and also now around WWE, but they erased his name with his discounted merchandise, and he was supposed to be at the Royal Rumble. That was nixed. He was supposed to have a storyline with Dominic Mysterio at the Royal Rumble leading to the match at Elimination Chamber. That was nixed. And even was to having a match that a lot of fans was looking forward to, including myself, Brock Lesnar versus the current Intercontinental Champion Gunther. That was also nixed for a WrestleMania match. But he looked to Vince as a father figure. That's kind of very suspicious. Why would you look to him as a father figure? We know Vince McMahon. We know he's done a lot as far as the wrestling business-wise, and putting WWE on the map with the superstars, with his blueprint, with his business acumen. We get all of that, but at the same time, Vince did a lot of dirty stuff backstage, and he had real dirty laundry that's come to the media right now. And Brock looks up to that. He's defending Vince. That's what it looks like. He's defending this man of what's going on. And that is not a good look. Not a good look at all for Brock Lesnar nor Vince. But it is definitely a pattern that we see with this. It's not good at all. And it's just getting, worse and worse. Because Vince McMahon, they said that more stuff will be revealed alongside that. More stuff will be revealed with Vince McMahon and everything else that's going on. But to look at him as a father figure, that's something else. But that's definitely a pattern with this whole thing with Vince and Brock. It's always been a pattern. Brock had big contracts that people did not approve of. It's just one thing after another. And there's just connection between these two. They always share the same women. It's see why they're so close. I know Vince liked Brock as an athlete. We're not taking nothing away from Brock being an extraordinary athlete, putting in the work, becoming multiple-time world champion. But he did have a big, massive contract for someone that's a part-timer and barely showed up and was never on the road. Because Brock, as we know, he did not like being on the road with WWE during his first stint. And when he came back in 2012, I guess he reported that he was not going to be on a road like that anymore. And Sable, now she had a short stint when she came back in 2003, but Brock Lesnar did not want Sable on the road. He wanted her to stay home and raise their kids and, just be a family. So that's what he wanted. And Sable, as we know, has not been around since then. She has been nowhere near a WWE ring, arena, or any event of that matter. If anything, when her and Brock Lesnar are seen together, they are seen outside of WWE ring. So that's the thing about that. But Brock Lesnar and Sable have always had involvement. Well, not before their involvement, but it was through Vince McMahon. Vince McMahon, I believe, is the reason that Sable and Brock Lesnar got together in the first place. It's not a coincidence that they was in the storyline with Vince and Sable romantically, and it ended up becoming Brock Lesnar and Sable involved romantically in real life. And they are still married to this day. So they were just always allies. Vince and Brock, always allies. Always buddy. Always, basically Vince covering Brock for whatever was happening. Always had a big contract. Whatever people had to say about Brock, Vince always backed him up. And in interviews, Brock always backed Vince up. He loved him as a father figure. He's appreciative of what Vince has done for him, despite, they had issues when Brock left in 2004. They still, had good relationship outside of that. He did come back to WWE. It's just with the whole scandal now is, what's best for business, as they say. It's best not only to keep Vince McMahon away, which they have done a great job, and now keep a Brock Lesnar away. Brock and Vince always had a connection with each other. Vince saying he wanted to have a relationship with Sable, and I believe he did. Sable doing Playboy, and Sable was also known to having massive contracts too. She was known for being a world champion. She had the world championship and also big contracts, and she rubbed people the wrong way back then. That's why when she came back, they made her apologize to Stone Cold and Undertaker. Sable had leverage when she was on her prime, being on multiple covers of Playboy, being the WWE Women's Champion, having massive contracts similar to Brock Lesnar, and having Vince McMahon backing her up in every way possible. Always had the proper backup by Vince. That is not a coincidence. He did it for Sable years ago. Even though she sued him, she came back, but she left because Brock didn't want her on the road. Then Brock does it later. He has a big contract. He's the world champion. He has leverage. It is not a coincidence. It's just too much of a connection here. Brock, Vince, Sable, then later on Brock, Vince, and Janel Grant. always been a connection there. And like I said, Vince McMahon, he's mainly the reason that Sable and Brock got together in the first place. Because I think if it wasn't for that storyline and Brock somehow being involved, being aligned with Vince McMahon in a storyline with Sable romantically, you would never met Sable. They would never had that connection. They would never got together, never got married, and probably wouldn't be together now. Who knows for all that matter? Because we do know, like I said before, that Brock was engaged. He was in a relationship, and Sable was previously married. We know that too. Now it ended up that Brock left his fiance for Sable, and Sable later divorced Marc Mero so these two could be together. Now Marc Mero did an interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast years ago, talking about how, Marc Mero, he got Sable to WWE. He talked about how, he got her in the business, and also how he heard voicemails that Brock Lesnar left for her. So he knew that something's going on. There was no animosity, no bad blood between them, but he said he wished them well and continue their marriage. But definitely it was always a connection between these two. And that's how they got together. That's how I see it. But definitely, Brock and Vince always seemed to the hip. They always was joined at the hip. No matter what was going on, they were just always allies. And now I understand why Vince and Brock were always backing each other up. He always protected Brock, and Brock did his best way to appreciate Vince for what he's done. It's not a coincidence that all this stuff happens. So it's just crazy how everything comes to fruition. Everything comes full circle of what happened, dating back to late 90s with Sable, early 2000s how she met with Brock, and now the connection with Janel Grant. Everything's coming full circle. And they said once again that this is not the end of the whole Vince McMahon scandal. There's more stuff going on. I don't think anything more will happen with Brock Lesnar, but this is not the end for Vince. There are more stuff that's going to be unveiled at some given point. We just don't know when, but at some point it will be covered, and it'll be covered here too at the Toxic Reign scandal. But definitely, they just always had involvement. There's no other way around it. And now everything makes sense of these two, of what happened. And like I said, it's just you got to pay the consequence for what you do. No matter who you are, how much money you got, or your status, or whatever the case may be. So that is just wild how all this stuff happened. And we would never thought in a million years that Brock Lesnar's name would be involved. Never thought he'd be involved in the suit. We knew Vince McMahon had the Hush scandal in 2022 starting. I never thought Brock Lesnar would be involved, but now it's the connection with Sable. It makes sense. And that's all I have regarding why they were always allies. How did Brock Lesnar really meet Sable? You guys let me know, what do you think of this whole scenario? Is there some truth to what a connection of Brock and Vince? Maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe there's just flat out truth, and it's right there in our faces. Soon 2 videos will pop up for Toxic Reign scandal on YouTube. First will be, was another wrestler assaulted by Vince? Next video will be her best championship reign of all time. Until then, it is OUT.